At 9:14 a.m. in the local time zone along Kherson's northwestern shoreline, a Russian TS-701 Tunis vessel approached the coast, shattering the morning stillness with all the grace of a sledgehammer in a monastery. Aboard the craft, roughly 6 Russian servicemen readied themselves for landfall, entirely unaware that 18,000 feet overhead, death itself was observing them in ultra-high definition. They had company. For 27 minutes straight, a Ukrainian naval aviation Bayraktar TB2 maintained its position in the silence above, drawing leisurely loops like a mechanized bird of prey. This wasn't some consumer-grade quadcopter with an improvised explosive strapped underneath. This was Turkey's response to the Predator drone. Its Rotax 912 power plant purred quietly, propelling the Steel Predator at a steady 100 miles per hour. What's the rush? The target wasn't going anywhere. The operator, positioned at a command console reeking of yesterday's coffee and electrical discharge, several hundred miles distant, fine-tuned the webcam camera's magnification. The infrared feed transformed the Tunis into a brilliant white signature against the frigid waters. Tunis translates to tuna in the Russian language, and if cosmic irony were lethal, the vessel would have gone under purely from its designation. But cosmic irony doesn't destroy aluminum combat gear. Precision-guided ordnance does. The pilot dispassionately monitored the activity below. They resembled insects at an outdoor gathering about to meet someone's boot. They operated with that cocky assurance typical of those who assume warfare happens to someone else. Check out these sightseers, the pilot mumbled, fine-tuning the laser targeting system with a thumb movement. On the monitor, the range readout displayed the countdown toward firing parameters. No dramatic soundtrack played, just the whir of cooling fans, and it was 90 seconds until the tuna learned that in this section of the Black Sea, they were the catch. Still, to comprehend how these Russians became stars of a trending Telegram clip, we need to roll back the clock. At 8:30, 44 minutes prior to the TD2 strike, a box-shaped aircraft assigned patrol duties over the Dnipro had already reached its operational zone. At 18,000 feet elevation, its Westcam MX-15D optical payload observed everything. And when we say everything, that's no exaggeration. This Canadian-manufactured electro-optical package isn't some jury-rigged action camera. It's a multispectral vision system so precise it could identify the use-by date on a Russian field ration 10 from 20 clicks out. The operator sat at a ground station resembling a gaming influencer's battle station more than a military installation. Contoured seating, multiple displays, and likely an open can of energy beverage. As the TD2 executed its automated flight pattern, the operator watched the video stream, switching between visible and infrared spectrums to prevent visual fatigue. That's drone combat's harsh truth, 99% bureaucratic tedium and 1% high-resolution carnage. But that particular morning, the adrenaline ratio was about to spike dramatically. At 9:05, something disrupted the monotony on the thermal feed. A heat source was progressing toward the coast's northwest section, trailing a thermal signature that glowed brightly on the sensor array. The pilot increased magnification, and the indistinct shape crystallized into the recognizable silhouette of a TS-701 Tunis. Forget massive capital shits. The Tunis is essentially an 8.8-meter aluminum coastal patrol craft with diesel propulsion, initially conceived for Coast Guard and frontier duties. It's not an armored landing craft. It's a waterborne aluminum can, yet the Russians, in their boundless logistical brilliance, were deploying it as troop transport. What made this contact noteworthy wasn't the vessel itself, but the sheer tactical foolishness on display. The pilot observed through the infrared camera as the aluminum craft ground against the muddy coastline. Heat signatures on the deck were counted. 1, 2, 6, 7 glowing points, human thermal profiles. They were offloading cargo. The operator's mouth curved into that strained expression of someone possessing knowledge the opposition lacks. Russian servicemen started jumping onto shore, handing supply containers to one another like they were helping with weekend furniture delivery. They appeared at ease. Critical error. For the MX-15D sensor array, body temperature doesn't deceive. At 9:10, the tactical situation was absolutely transparent. A supply landing operation in contested territory. A home delivery service, Russian Navy style. It wasn't merely a vessel. It was a target-rich environment full of enemy personnel, stationary and exposed. The Russians had just violated the fundamental rule of contemporary combat, remaining motionless beneath open skies. The tuna was ready to be served. At 9:14 hours, following minutes of methodical observation, the Ukrainian pilot received through the headset the 3 syllables that would determine the tuna's destiny: cleared to engage. The authorization originated directly from the 383rd UAV Brigade's Operations Center, where senior commanders had been monitoring the identical live footage, and this wasn't a casually made determination. Each MAML munition runs approximately $60,000, and the TB2 carries just 4. Expending that kind of budget to eliminate an aluminum boat worth less than a pre-owned sedan appears fiscally irresponsible. Furthermore, striking that location would expose Ukraine's drone coverage extending that far south, tipping off Russian air defense networks. But the math shifted when personnel were factored in. They weren't targeting a boat, they were targeting an elite formation and its cargo. The strategic value of removing that unit from operations exceeded both risk and expense. The pilot immediately commenced attack preparation. The tunets remained stationary at the water's edge. Unlike typical mobile targets in the drone warfare business, static objectives are holiday presents. The TD2's navigation computer received fresh parameters, abandoned patrol circuit, and established optimal firing geometry. The aircraft banked left, beginning a wide turn to align perfectly with the shoreline. But this wasn't simply about aiming. The MAML required proper angle of attack for maximum fragmentation effectiveness. The Wescom's 15 times optical magnification brought details close enough to distinguish uniform specifics, and there lay the fatal blunder. The majority of soldiers had clustered near the bow and on the sand to transfer containers, likely attempting to expedite the operation. Amateur hour, the pilot muttered under their breath. Maintaining dispersal saves lives, people. Bunching together only simplified the missile's task exponentially. Through maximum zoom, the operator could now identify individual gear, tactical harnesses, modern protective helmets, assault weapons with optical attachments. This definitely wasn't a delivery of groceries, it was Special Operations Forces or Naval Infantry. And here's where the MAML enters the picture. The Turkish designation translates to Intelligent Micromunition, and it represents a masterpiece of compact lethality. Weighing merely 23 kilograms, it appears diminutive compared to massive cruise weapons. Yet its 10-kilogram explosive payload is engineered to penetrate light protective plating or, in this scenario, convert a vessel's aluminum construction into shrapnel and negative headlines. The munition employs semi-active laser targeting technology. This means the TB2 can't simply fire and disengage. The pilot must maintain the laser designator locked on target throughout the projectile's entire trajectory, like a laser pointer for the planet's deadliest feline. 8 kilometers distance, the minimum range for accurate delivery from that elevation, translated to an agonizing 41 seconds of stable flight. However, on the display something shifted. The soldiers on shore ceased passing containers. One gestured toward the beach, indicating the forest edge. Were they finished? Had they detected something? The pilot performed a final systems verification. Laser designator, functional. Munition status, ready. Wind conditions, under 5 knots. The circumstances were perfect for elimination. The pilot centered the targeting reticle, positioning it precisely over the group's center mass, right between the tunet's power plant and the sand. The laser rangefinder computed distance instantaneously, 13.4 kilometers. Still excessive range. While the MAML can theoretically reach 14 kilometers when released from high altitude, precision degrades past 8 kilometers, and with personnel so close to finding cover and foliage, there was zero room for mistakes. Patience was required. Seconds crawled by like eternities. 11 kilometers, 10 kilometers. The aircraft advanced inexorably toward its release point, while below, the Russians remained completely ignorant of the death hovering 18,000 feet overhead. The pilot discerned additional details now. The vessel's communication masts, the hull identification painted in white, even how one serviceman adjusted his weapon sling. A finger hovered above the launch authorization control. Finally, at 19:14:50, range indicated 8.5 kilometers. The engagement parameters were nearly ideal, but something nagged at the operator. The The soldiers began lifting containers and moving. They were starting to spread out. If they reached the forest density, the laser couldn't maintain lock on all targets. The opportunity window was closing faster than a submarine hatch. The pilot understood it was this moment or nothing. Whatever they intended with those supplies had to conclude here on the waterline. At 9:15:05 hours, the TD2 pilot squeezed the trigger on the control stick, anticipating the subtle vibration of weapon separation. But instead, the monitor flashed crimson. Alert! Laser designator malfunction. Recalibration required. Pulse rate rocketed from 60 to 120 in an instant. Down at the landing site, the final Russian soldiers were already dispersing. If they made the tree line, the opportunity was lost. Every moment was torture. The pilot executed the only solution that works on both household appliances and million-dollar military equipment: a complete power cycle. The system initiated its diagnostic routine. The progress indicator filled with maddening sluggishness. 5 seconds, 8 seconds. The Russians were already entering the tall vegetation. Finally, laser operational. The pilot reacquired the target, but noticed something peculiar in the thermal imagery. The craft wasn't merely transporting ammunition. The containers they were offloading so cautiously had an abnormal elongated, cylindrical profile, and the soldiers handled them as if they were fragile, but speculation time had expired. In 39 seconds, whatever those containers held would be distributed across the Kherson region. At 9:15:20, the MAML detached from the TB2's hardpoint. The projectile stabilizing surfaces deployed immediately, and its semi-active guidance head began searching for the laser reflection bouncing off the vessel structure. The munition descended silently at 250 meters per second. On the beach, the scene remained one of almost tragic obliviousness. Through the display, the pilot observed several soldiers pause to redistribute weight and ignite a cigarette, completely unaware this would be their final one. The TB2's laser remained locked solid as granite on the ship's engine block. Even minimal deviation would send the missile plowing into adjacent terrain, but the aircraft's gyro-stabilized gimbal maintained the beam with surgical steadiness. The operator watched the range counter decrease. 5 kilometers, 4 kilometers, 3 kilometers, 15 seconds to detonation. Suddenly, one of the crew members on the vessel's deck gestured skyward. Perhaps he glimpsed sunlight reflecting off the drone's airframe or heard the incoming whistle. The pilot saw him shout, frantically waving at his comrades on shore, but physics isn't negotiable. At a combined velocity approaching 900 kilometers hourly, their alarm came 3 weeks too late. The infrared display showed immediate chaos. The Russians on the beach scattered like insects when illumination strikes. Some dove behind containers. Others, in an act of tragicomic futility, raised their Kalashnikov rifles skyward, as if 5.45mm rounds could intercept a terminally guided munition. But the pilot noticed something strange. 2 servicemen, instead of seeking protection, frantically attempted dragging one of the elongated containers back toward the water. Why gamble your existence for a wooden crate instead of self-preservation? 5 seconds remaining, the TB2's camera auto-adjusted, recording every detail in 4K clarity. Ukrainian intelligence personnel monitoring the transmission at command headquarters leaned closer to their screens. Those containers bore distinctive identification markings. It wasn't provisions, wasn't standard ammunition. Whatever the contents, this operation had just evolved into the week's most critical intelligence discovery. Contact. The MAML struck the vessel center at 9:15:23 with textbook accuracy. The initial detonation split the tunet's aluminum construction like inexpensive kitchen foil. The blast wave immediately vaporized the 2 soldiers attempting to salvage the cargo and launched the others like toys toward the vegetation. But observe what occurred at the 1.3-second timestamp. Those weren't diesel fuel secondary explosions. The smoke wasn't black and petroleum-based. It was white, thick, and expelled streams of intense luminescence, even under daylight. These were specialized demolition charges and thermite reactions. The vessel wasn't delivering routine resupply, it was delivering a deep penetration sabotage element. As burning debris cascaded into the estuary's muddy waters, the TB2's camera recorded the final detail that had intelligence analysts in Kyiv standing from their workstations. One of the containers that went airborne split open, exposing red-banded cylinders, military-grade demolitions for critical infrastructure destruction. They were planning to destroy a bridge or a hydroelectric facility. In Moscow, some general was about to experience a nightmarish morning. Russian military communications in the sector erupted in shouting, then complete radio silence. No rescue helicopters deployed. No support watercraft appeared. The mission was terminated in real time. Operational security outweighed the lives of the 6 personnel who'd just been incinerated on a forgotten coastline. The TB2 pilot watched the flames burn momentarily longer, took a drink of their now warm energy beverage, and entered the outcome in the digital mission log. Target neutralized. 6 months of specialized training, millions of rubles in equipment, and a flawless sabotage operation, all eliminated in 43 seconds by someone in an ergonomic chair hundreds of miles distant. Welcome to 21st century warfare. Mission complete and out.